Come on. Now you're nice and fresh. He is tough, but you're tough.
Yeah, no.
Well, go out and box him now. Never mind how tough he is. I don't want to know that. I want to know you're coming out of here without any marks on you.
That's right, mate. Just gloves. Yes, Ram.
Box. Come on. Come on. Come on. Listen. Stay in the centre. Let him come on to you and catch him. Yeah. It's easy. It's the last round. Don't spoil it. Come on. Box. Box.
Hello and welcome to the Black Flash Boxing channel. Today we're joined by no other than Mike Jennings, a former world champion holding the WBU belt. Mike was a boxer between 1999 and retired in 2010. Welcome to the show.
Cheers, thanks for having me.
We're going to talk a little bit about your past, you turning into a boxing trainer and the fighters that you've got.
Yeah.
So we're going to take it back to when you first came into the Colliers and Moston gym, age 21, when you met Brian Hughes. Yeah. Talk to us about that.
Well, what it was, I was, in fact, when I was still amateur, I got picked to box in what they call a multi-nations, and it's like a qualifier for the Commonwealth Games. And at this time, I was working part-time at a slaughterhouse, and I hadn't boxed for quite a few months because I couldn't get fights. I come to this point and I was thinking, should I even carry on boxing? I was thinking of just packing up and just going to work basically. So I went home, spoke to my mum, and my mum was like saying, no, don't, you've been doing this since she was like 12, 13. So I thought, well, I don't want to do this amateur no more. So I ended up speaking to a guy that I know from Manchester, John Snape, we used to call him Toddy. He'd come and watch me fight all over the country as an amateur. And he said, let me introduce you to Brian up at Colliers and Moston. So I went, Toddy took me up there, and I went up one day, just spoke with everyone, Pat and all them that was in the gym, Gomez, Anthony Farnell. And from that day I said, yeah, I want to come back, and I went back, and that's where I wanted to stay with Brian.
Did you relocate to Manchester then?
No, I used to travel. It was 31.5 miles from my house to the gym door. So, and I was always first there, asked Brian and Pat actually. No, I used to travel there every day. Okay. Every day.
So, talk to us a little bit about Brian Hughes training you. You turned pro, yeah, age 21. Yeah. You know, almost giving up, but said, no, I'm going to carry on. You met Brian Hughes, you turned pro. Talk to us a little bit about you being trained by Brian Hughes, because it's a bit of a legacy that we've got going on at this gym. Yeah. You know, Brian Hughes is like the almost like the key player in all of this. Started with loads of fighters, brought loads of them through. You're one of them. So talk to us about you training with Brian Hughes.
Like I said, the first time I went up there, I was nobody. I was a nobody really. I was an alright amateur. I was a pretty good amateur, but in that boxing gym at that time, I was nothing. Like, because we had some good kids coming through. Obviously, Pat and the likes, Robin Reed. So when I went up there, I started enjoying it again, because Brian he was a comedian as well. Do you know what I mean? He was really, really funny. I trained in that gym for about 8 months before I actually had my first professional fight. So I was learning on the game really. And there was no better person to learn from than Brian. He could, even though he couldn't physically show you some things that he wanted you to do, he just needed to explain, and the way that he put it across to you, he'd paint a picture in your head, and after you'd done it, he'd say, that's what I want, sort of thing. He was really good at breaking things down and just putting it into you, so it was so easy to understand. Anyone could understand it. Well, I thought that anyway. Anyone could understand the way that he would explain things to you. And obviously, with the past champions that he'd had, we believed everything he said. You know, he was very technical. I won't say he was the greatest, he wasn't the greatest fitness man. He weren't that bothered about that. We got loads of sparring in the gym. We used to get sparring coming from all over the country because we had good kids in the gym. So we were just learning all the time. We go in the gym sometime, we just spend hours just doing technique drills, making sure everything was spot on. And that, I think, me doing, learning from Brian now, I've took a lot of that with me in what I do now. So yeah, it's put me in good stead.
Paying it forward. Yeah. So we walk forward through your career then. Obviously you turned over pro. Yeah. 2005 you won the vacant British Welterweight title. Yeah. With a first round knockout, yeah, of Jimmy Vincent. Yeah. Talk to us about that, and Brian being in your corner, getting that,
what happened, one of my stablemates, David Barnes, he boxed Jimmy Vincent for the vacant title, actually, I think it was. Yeah, it was for the vacant title. And it was, a lot of people argued over the decision. David got it, but a lot of people thought Jimmy Vincent had won it. So them two were supposed to have the rematch. But David also got offered a fight for the Commonwealth title against Ali Numbambe, I think he was called. So he ended up fighting for the Commonwealth. I'd boxed 4 weeks previously. I was defending my English title. I was an English champion as well. And I'd stopped a kid, I think it was Chris Saunders, in the 9th round. And then this fight got offered for the vacant British title. Brian asked me if I wanted it. I said yes, 100%. So I'd boxed 4 weeks before. I had a few days off the gym, and then I was back into camp again, ready to fight Jimmy Vincent. And obviously Jimmy Vincent was known, he was a tough man, Jimmy Vincent. He'd been the distance with a lot of good fighters, Eamon McGee and all them sort of people, some good fighters. So we planned on a 12-round fight, but obviously, you know, it didn't go that way. I stopped him and knocked him out, actually, in the first round. I remember going back to the dressing rooms after getting a shower, and I was like that, actually grabbing my skin, pinching my skin, thinking, oh, please don't wake up. You know, thinking I was dreaming. Because I was anyway, I was obsessed with boxing. I would dream about my fights, you know, for weeks before, and picture if he was going to throw this, I would always have my own answer for it. I wouldn't think, oh, he's going to knock me out. I was thinking, well, if he throws that right hand left up, I'm going to bubble and come back with my own shot. So I overplayed everything for a million times before. So, you know, when I won that British title, especially the way that I did, yeah, that was probably my best night in boxing, to be fair.
What a debut.
Yeah, it was class.
That mindset that you've got then, like you said, an obsession almost, you're anticipating the fight and what you're going to do, so you're already thinking of counters and ways to win.
Yeah.
When did that mindset set in?
From the beginning as being a pro, because like even, so say for instance I boxed Jimmy Vincent for the British title, just say after that fight, my next fight was a 4-rounder against a kid might have lost all 10. That next 4-rounder is just as, it's more important than the British title, because if I was to get beat in that 4-rounder, where do I go from that? So I was just, like I say, I was obsessed by it. I was never scared of any opponent, even the likes of Cotto and Brook and all them. I was never scared of them. I was more scared of getting beat. That's what drove me on, the fear of getting beat. I hate getting beat. I still do now, actually, but it happens, doesn't it? We've got to get on with it, and you learn from getting beat anyway. You know, it's one of them things.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that, because you had a loss on a very close split decision.
Yeah.
And that was a second title defence of that belt.
Yeah.
To Young Mutley.
Yeah.
Talk to me about dealing with that defeat then.
Well, what happened, obviously, my first defence was against Bradley Price, who was a good fighter, actually. I boxed him at Preston Guildhall, and I beat Bradley Price on it was a 12-round point decision. And then the fight after, obviously, we got offered Young Mutley, so yeah, that's who we're fighting. But before that fight, I was training like so intense. I'd never left anything in me. And no excuse. At the end of the day, he got the decision. I thought I beat him, if I'm being honest with you, but I never. He got the win. But I was always known, like when you watch my fights back, the commentators will always say, "Oh, how fit he was," and you know, I was a fanatical trainer. I was a fitness fanatic, and for that fight, I'd overdone it. I remember coming back after the first round, and I was knackered after the first round. And this is like what I use this now for myself, because now as I'm training kids and stuff like that, I would soon have a kid that's not trained than a kid that's overtrained, because the kid's not that. I could easily do 4 rounds unfit, where I couldn't do 1 round being overfit. Do you understand? Okay. So you know, again, I got beat, but I learned off it, and it's one of them things.
Yeah, but that didn't stop you, because in 2006, you returned with a knockout of the Slovakian, Rastilov Kovac.
Yeah.
And that was in the 3rd.
Yeah, I think it was a body shot. That was it at Bolton as well. I think it was. Yeah, it was just a comeback fight after that fight with Mutley, and Frank Warren actually offered me more money if I stopped him, so I got the job done. Fantastic.
That's always a bit of an incentive.
Yeah. So
then we move on to the WBU, the World Boxing Union belt, and this is where Pat Barrett steps in as your trainer.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've been with Brian Hughes. Brian Hughes trained Pat himself.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that transition then. Like you coming into the gym and saying Pat's one of them in there, to him now being your trainer.
Yeah,
talk to us about that.
I mean, Pat was always in and out of the gym anyway, all the time that I was at the gym. So we all looked up to Pat, sort of thing. You know, he always helped Brian out in different. Sometimes he'd be in the gym every day. Then you might not see him for a couple of weeks. I got the fight against Takaloo. Pat had actually done work with Takaloo previously. I think actually Takaloo came up to our gym and done some work with Pat. So it just made sense to do a lot of the technical stuff with Pat. You know, he drilled it into me what I needed to do, and it's not disrespectful to Takaloo, because Takaloo's a good fighter. You know, he was a dangerous fighter, but I think, you know, if I'd have applied a bit more pressure, I think I could have stopped him. People didn't have me down as a big puncher, but I had a good work rate, and I probably could have grinded him down. And I remember, I think it was like after round 7, thinking, I said to Brian, I want to go forward. No, stick to your plan. And I had to stick to what I was doing, which was boxing. Brian was like I was saying before, as much as he was a comedian and so easy to get on with, if he shouted at you in the corner, you knew he meant business, sort of thing.
You
because
listened.
I've come back to the corner and had a laugh and a joke with Brian. Do you know, in an actual fight, but you know when you come back to a corner and he's giving you a stern look and you listen to me, you know what I mean? You know, I think, oh shit, I'm gonna have to do what he tells me here, and he did. And that night, I remember Pat screaming at the ringside as well. You know, so the two of Brian and Pat together was a good team. There was a great team, to be honest with you, because they both brought different aspects to it. Like with Pat, he was a perfectionist. Pat, he could get you to be left hook, so you throw this left hook on the pad, exactly how we just took. No, that's not right. So you go through it 100 times, you know what I mean, until it was absolutely perfect. And to be fair, I mean, he's not done a bad job now. You look at your Zelfa and your Lindens and stuff like that, and the other kids that he's coming through. And Pat speaks to me about some of his fighters, the tactics, what he's got, and I speak to Pat. You know, we're close like that. I've done the corners with Pat as well, with Zelfa and Linden in the past. So yeah, I mean, then he knows what he's talking about. He's clever when it comes to technical side of boxing.
So the contrast of Brian and Pat then, do you see the similarities between the two?
Yeah, see, Brian taught Pat the way Pat boxed, basically. Brian taught me the way I boxed as a professional, completely different to an amateur and all the other kids. Brian had a certain style. You know, he loved the boxer and he loved the puncher as well. But he loved it. Brian was like, he was more of a purist. He loved a kid what could jab and move and not get hit. That was his main thing. And Pat's took that on board as well, because all the look at the, like you said, Zelfa and Linden.
Movement is key.
Yeah, jab. You know, the jab as well. Linden's probably got one of the best jabs in the country, and he works on the defence. So they work on similar sort of things, but I said Pat puts it across a little bit different. He's a bit more stricter than what Brian was, but I think that's down to Brian. I'm not saying Pat doesn't do it well, because he does, but Brian, he could just paint a picture in your head and you knew what he meant straight away. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you don't with Pat. Pat's, luckily for Pat, you know, he's able to show the lads what he wants what he wants them to do. At the minute, I'm physically well that I can show the lads, you know. But Brian was good because he had to talk you through it, and you knew exactly what it meant.
You could verbalise it.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, it's like me getting on the phone talking to someone, like, I want you to throw a jab. They've never done no boxing before, and them understanding how does that work? I don't know. You can't do that. Yeah. Where he was good at that sort of thing. He was very good at getting in your mind and making you believe, you know, you're gonna do this.
Yeah. To be fair, I think everyone that we spoke to has said the same thing about both Brian Hughes and Pat Barrett. Pat will make you practice the same move for hours until you get it right. I mean, I've been in his gym today, and I've seen him do the same thing with the kids in there.
Yeah.
And then, but he'll offer that feedback. He'll say, well, how can you improve on that? what do you need to do next.
Yeah,
so it
which
gets
is a
them
good
thinking.
thing as well, because I do that myself, you know, with the lads. I said to him, listen, if you don't think this is going to work, you don't use it. It's just another bow to your, you know, it's just another string to your bow sort of thing. If it's going to work for you, use it. If it doesn't, you've nothing lost. There's nothing lost anyway. And I'll say we're going to do this because of this, rather than saying, right, do this, and then they've not got a clue what
There's
it's
no
for.
explanation.
Yeah, you've got to explain why, and I want the lads to question me. Do you know what I mean? I think that's one thing you've got to be able to do as a coach, as a good coach, is someone be able to question you, and you should have the answers. Yeah, you should have the answers. Yeah.
Yeah. So April 2007, you got the WBU belt. Cardiff fight on the Joel Calzaghe card.
Yeah.
And then you defended it 2008.
Yeah,
Ross Minter, 9th round, 12-round fight. But then after that, we're going to touch on the Kell Brook fight.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't aware, like I said, until today about the Kell Brook. I knew about the Miguel Cotto. So talk to us about the Kell Brook fight.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Kell, obviously, when he was coming up through the rankings, and Kell actually told me he used to look up to me when I was boxing, do you know what I mean? So I was a little bit older than Kell. Obviously, I'd watched him fight. I knew he was a good kid coming up. He's from Brendan Ingle's gym. You know, with Brendan Ingle, he was like a Brian Hughes sort of thing. If he was saying this kid's good, 9 times out of 10, he's a good kid. He knows his boxing. Obviously, like I said, I'd watched him. He could punch, he could switch, he had fast hands. He was unorthodox, you know, in the way that he boxed. But I also knew that at that time he didn't really live the life either. Do you know what I mean? So it was just a matter of getting in there and trying to wear him down, basically. I actually got stopped on a cut, and it was an elbow what caught me in the cut in the fight, and the doctor stopped it, and I don't know why he did, because it weren't even that bad, to be honest with you. The cut weren't that bad, but up until the round I got stopped, the judges did have me 1 round up. But he won the first 2 pretty clear, to be honest with you. But I started getting into it. I remember being on the inside, and I could start hearing breathing. Do you know what I mean? It gives you a little bit of confidence, especially if we having the experience. You understand the body language of your opponent, sort of thing, and how they was breathing. But it is what it is. You know, Kell went on. He'd done well, and fair play to the kid. I've got nothing but respect for Kell Brook. He's a class fighter. You know, he might have beat me, he might have stopped me in later rounds, I don't know, but I thought I was getting to him in there as well, do you know what I mean? But again, every credit to Kell. He's gone on and done really, really well for himself, so fair play to him.
And a fighter that had a lot of respect for yourself as well, that watched you.
Yeah.
You know, I can imagine him sitting on the sofa and saying, you know, talk to us about the Mike Jennings fight, and he'd probably say, you know, I used to watch him, I looked up to him.
I hope so, you know, because, you know, I've got respect for Kell, and he's obviously gone on and boxed people miles out of my league, a lot better than me, so he probably don't get asked about me that much. It's more the fights that he boxed after me. That's what he'll be getting asked about, and rightly so.
So then you went to fight for the vacant WBO welterweight. I think was that before Kell or after?
Before.
So that was 2009, wasn't it?
2009, yeah.
Yeah, I do beg your pardon. So you're up in big lights, Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, well, I was ranked number 1 by the WBO. Obviously, with Frank Warren, he took you the WBO route, and obviously, I think it went off box rec rankings. I'm not too sure. They had a point system, so I'd worked my way up anyway, and I was like number 1. The title was actually vacant. I'm not too sure if Antonio Margarito got banned because he had plaster in his in his wraps. So at the beginning, I could have been fighting Margarito, but because he got found out for that, he got banned.
I remember that story now.
Yeah. And then there was 2 others in line, which was Miguel Cotto, or a kid called Paul Williams, who was like 6'4" southpaw. So out of the 2, I was glad that I got Cotto, just because I know like Cotto was a beast anyway, and probably he was an Hall of Famer, innit? But out of the 2 different styles, I'm glad that I got Cotto, to be honest with you.
Talk to us a bit about that fight then, because It's an interesting fight, to be fair, because you were very busy in the fight.
Yeah.
We saw some really good slick movement from you.
Yeah.
You caught him with a few good headshots.
Yeah.
But obviously it didn't go your way. But
nah, just everything about the fight was it weren't great, to be fair. I should have had better sparring and stuff like that, which I was prepared to pay for, but it never happened. That anyway, forget that. But actually, the event, going over there 2 days out of a week once just for media, like the media over there at that time was like massive. There was like 1,000 reporters in there, you know. There was honestly cameras, everything, everything. It was madness. It was like, wow, this is big, this, you know. And we went over for 2 days and then went back over obviously 10 days before the fight. And in them 10 days, everything was like, it was just so negative, do you know what I mean? It does you think, give us a break sort of thing, do you know what I mean? Even the English fans, he's got no chance in it. No matter how mentally strong you might be, there is a plant, you know, a seed what's planted in there, and you don't go in the fight thinking of all this shit, but people should get behind the British fighters even now. Do you know what I mean? It's like when Callum Smith boxed Canelo, you know, people slagging him, and when Fury boxed Deontay Wilder, people slagging Fury from this country. I understand, you know, some people have a dislike for him, but give him a break sort of thing. So when we actually went over there, I remember actually on the night of the fight, Brian was wrapping my hands, and Cotto's team was watching over him wrap, making sure it was right. He'd wrap my hand, and Brian went to Cotto's trainer. He said, all right? He went, no, take it off. This was like 45 minutes before the fight.
So those mind games.
Oh yeah. But again, I've learnt all this. I have done that trick with one of my fighters who was fighting for a British title, and I knew the guy what was wrapping the opponent's hands, and I knew how he wrapped hands because he taught me how to do it. So I sent my brother into the changing room, and I said to him, just watch how he wraps. Wait till he's finished, and then tell him, listen, you've stacked there, you've got tape, you've got tape, bandage tape, which is illegal. So when he's finished that one, make him take it off. So, and that's what they do. It just upsets you, and it does upset you as a fighter as well.
It's like deflating, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that time when Brian was like 60 odd, and Cotto's trainer was the same sort of age, and Brian lost his head and stood up, and they was both head to head.
Toe to toe.
It was funny, actually. It was funny. But they just do anything to try and upset you. The night before the fight, my alarms went off in the hotel room about 3:30 in the morning. Just shit like that. But it is all part and part of the game, I suppose. If you can get an advantage, then you're going to do it.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
Like behind the scenes, when you're fighting out of the country. I mean, the Deontay Wilder Fury thing, I always knew that Fury was going to win. Not because he was British, I just believed that he was the better boxer.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is, obviously, I was a massive underdog, but fair play. If someone says, listen, Cotto's going to smash him, all right, fair enough. It's when they start saying personal shit, you know, there's no need for that. No need for it. I mean, it's two lads having a fight. You know, it's something we've been doing probably since we were kids. It's something what we love to do as well. So why slag them off?
Boxing fans are fickle though, aren't they?
Yeah,
and they're sort of like fair weather friends.
Yeah, I mean, 1 minute you're the best thing since sliced bread. You get beaten, that's it. Then you throw you to the dogs, don't they?
Absolutely, just like that.
Turncoats. That's what Brian used to call them. Turncoat. He's a turncoat.
Okay, I'm going to keep that one. I'll bank that one. I like that. So then we move on and you retire. You don't retire through choice. You retire because you've got a shoulder injury.
Yeah. I was actually getting ready for a fight. It was a British title fight as well. I was boxing a kid from Ireland. John O'Donnell, I think he was called. I can't remember. But I was in the gym training anyway, and I was working on just left jabs, and my shoulder just kept aching. It wasn't like a sudden pain or anything. It just kept aching. So I rested that, and within 2 weeks, my right one was doing the exact same thing. I did go to physio, and they said, oh, we'll get you better. I spent fortunes on physio and everything like that, thinking it was nothing, because it wasn't like a sharp pain. I didn't think I broke anything. And to be honest with you, it was my own fault. I left it too long. I should have gone and got MRI scans and stuff. I ended up needing surgery on both my shoulders, which if I'd have done it years before, I probably would have been all right. But you live and learn, don't you? But again, I learned from that. The kids in my gym, you know, when they got any injuries or anything, I make them go and get the physio and make sure that they recover proper as well, sort of things. Give them a day off and make sure that they rest when they need to rest. You learn all the time through your own mistakes. Probably, I'd sooner me make the mistakes rather than the lads make the mistakes, you know, so I can tell them then, and hopefully they'll listen.
So moving on from that then, it's sort of like, yep, you've lived the life, you've done it, you've retired. You didn't go into a corner and sulk because of your injuries. You said, no, that's it. Well, I'm going to set up my own stuff now. So talk to us about that.
Well, what happened there, I was actually doing nothing. I don't know what I would have actually done, actually. But I wasn't doing anything. And my brother and a few of his mates, who was doing this white-collar fight, they were all having a white-collar fight, which is a bit different then. It was called unlicensed boxing. It's a bit different to what they do now, this ultra-white collar and all this. It was like two lads having a proper fight. So they needed a trainer, so I started training them. And within like 2 weeks of training them, there was only like 2 or 3 of them at the time. It like went from 3 to 6 to 9 to 10, you know. And it just,
you've got a
and
gym
it built
full?
up, yeah, we had a gym full. So they had a couple of them fights, and then me and my brother, who's always been involved in boxing anyway, he was a boxer himself, he never turned pro, but he had come to every single one of my fights all over the world. We said we're going to get a gym, and we opened a gym about, I think it was 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago when I look back now. Yeah, about 7, 8 years ago.
The Jennings Gym in Chorley.
Yeah, Jennings Gym, yeah. Well, we was only going to do it with the amateurs at the beginning. And then one day I saw Matty Askin, who used to train at Colliers with me. I used to pick Matty's from Blackpool. So what he used to do, he used to drive to Chorley, meet me in Chorley. Yeah, I know, it was a trek for him. He'd meet me in Chorley, and then I'd take him to Manchester with me to train at Brian's and Pat's. So anyway, I saw Matty at Reebok Stadium one day, and I just asked him what he was doing. He was still English champion, but he wasn't training. He'd packed up boxing, and he just said, like, I'm not doing anything, I've put loads of weight on. I said, me and our babe just opened a gym, why don't you come down? And he came down. He defended his English title twice with us. He won the British title and defended that with us. And then he ended up getting beat off Lawrence Okoli in a stinker of a fight, to be honest with you. It was a crap fight, but it is what it is. Matty's retired now, he's doing his own thing. He comes down now and again, actually. He's a good kid, Matty. Yeah. Proper nice lad. So
talk to us about the other fights that you've got. I know you mentioned Jack Armfield, Jack Cullen, Mark Jeffers, Mark Heffron. Yeah. Talk to us about your fighters that you've got now.
Yeah, well, obviously, I'll go through them in order. Jack Armfield, he came after Matty Askin. He came from another gym. He had a couple of fights with us, and then he was winning. And then he ended up getting a fight against John Ryder, who boxed Callum Smith. He took Callum Smith. It was a very close fight, to be fair. And we went into that fight. We was a massive, massive underdogs on it. But we'd studied John Ryder so much. We knew everything what he was going to do, and Jack did as well, because we drummed it and drummed it and drummed it into him. And Jack went on and beat him, actually. He got the decision. And then after that, he got a British title shot. But Jack had a few things going on outside the gym. He got beat off a kid called Tommy Langford. I don't even know. I can't remember how many, if he defended it a few times. But Jack, he went away from boxing, come back. He's back doing bits and bats now. Whether he's going to box again or not, I'm not sure. I don't think he's sure yet. So there's Jack. And then we have Mark Jeffers, who was an amateur at the time. He came to us when he was like 16, 17 as an amateur. Had a few fights with us. And then he was going to pack up boxing. He'd had enough of the amateur game. He said, I'm either going to turn pro or pack up. But we didn't want him to turn pro at the time because he was only 18. So we said to him, well, what we'll do, our manager will take our time with you and build you up, sort of thing. And Mark's a really, really talented kid. He's not been seen much yet, you know, on the bigger shows and stuff. He's been on a few of the littler shows. I've actually had him up to Pat's sparring a few times with some of Pat's lads. I think this year, if everything goes back to normal with COVID, hopefully, you know, we'll get a chance to showcase what he can actually do, because he's talented. And then Mark Heffron, he came to us not long ago, actually. In fact, we've only had 2 fights with Mark Heffron. One There was one was for, it was some international title, and one was a rematch for the British title, and he got the first fight against a kid called Denzel Bentley from London. I thought Mark had nicked that fight, and so did a lot of other people, but it never got it anyway. I think it was a split draw or something. And then the second fight, Bentley caught him with a decent right hand and shut Mark's eye. He couldn't see, his eye was a mess. So I ended up pulling him out of that fight. I think it was either the third or fourth round. But Mark's back training, you know, we're back going to basics with him, sort of thing, and building him back up. And then Jack Cullen, he came over to us, got a fight. He's boxed quite a few times on the Eddie Hearn bills on Matchroom. Got a fight against John Doherty. Again, he was a massive underdog, southpaw kid. So again, with Jack, we drummed it into him. He knew everything what he was going to do. And to be fair, he gave Doherty a good hiding. It was a good fight. He beat him quite well. I thought comfortable. Yeah. We're just waiting on dates for them all, to be honest with you.
I mean, obviously we're coming out of lockdown now. Fingers crossed. Yeah. You've got a couple that are coming through. We talk about the small hall shows because obviously Black Flash Promotions are bringing the small hall shows. We're hoping to start getting the shows on the road from the 20 something of July. Nothing actually confirmed yet. But is that a show that you'd be looking to put some of your fighters on?
Yeah, because I'm like, obviously there's certain lads what I couldn't, like you've got Jack Cullen, I couldn't, Mark Efron, I couldn't, because he's got promoters and their own thing. Mark Jeffers, yeah, I could put him on a show. Kids that are turning over, I could put them on Pat's shows as well, because Pat's like what Brian was like, and I suppose I'm like what Brian was like, building your lads up to a certain level.
There's a commonality between you,
Yeah, because you've got to, there's no point in me signing Mark Jeffers up when he was 18 with Eddie Hearn, going in there, getting beaten his first fight, that's him done then, he's finished.
Build the fighter.
So you may as well build them up, they're learning on the job, they're only young kids, like Zelfa and Lyndon, they were young kids, not much, well, Lyndon had quite a bit of amateur experience, but Zelfa didn't have much really, so they're learning on the job. So you've got to bring them on slowly. So them little shows, like with Mark Jeffers, not many people know about Mark Jeffers because he's been brought on that way. Well, now I think if everything does go back to normal, a lot more people will hear about Mark Jeffers. So it's a matter of just bringing them on slowly, getting the right fights at the right times, not just chucking them in with kids they're going to knock over. You know, putting them in with some kids what will give a bit of a fight back. You're learning, the kids are learning as well on the job. They have to learn on the job because, you know, they might not have had a lot of amateur experience or even boxing experience. So, yeah, I mean, definitely Pat, perfect for it. Perfect. Them Black Flash shows are spot on for him.
Yeah. Will you be bringing them over to here? We're going to set up something in the small town of Chorley so you can have a home fight.
100%, I would do that. I mean, we just need the right fighters, you know, to do the tickets and stuff like that. Pat's mentioned it to me a few times, but at the time, we've never had the sort of kids what we could do that. But yeah, I would, if we had the kids to do that, I would definitely do that. 100%.
Start drumming up the interest. Yeah.
Charlie's a massive fighting town. We had Kell Brook, he was British, Commonwealth, he boxed for the European, he was a champion. Obviously me, Jack Catterall, he's fighting for he's possibly fighting for the WBO, the winner of Josh Taylor. You know, so people get behind him. When I used to fight, ask Pat. In fact, I actually boxed on one of Pat and Wally Dixon's shows at Preston Guildhall. He called it the Homecoming. Preston Guildhall holds 1,800 spectators, and I think I sold like 1,100 of them. You know, personally sold.
Really good ticket seller then.
Yeah, I'd sell 1,000 tickets. That's Pat. I'd easily sell 1,000 tickets.
How do you put that into your fighters then to be able to sell those tickets? Because a lot of pro fighters always struggle.
Yeah, I mean, you've just
ticket selling seems to be a bit of a bugbear.
It is what it is. Not a lot you can do if you can't sell tickets. You've just got to. I think it's down to the kids' personality and, you know, what they're like as an individual. You've got to get on with people. There's no point going around, I am this and I am that. People think, I don't like that little shit. So they're not gonna buy a ticket off you, are they?
True.
You know, you've got to be likeable. There's got to be something you've got to be able to sell something. Do you understand? And that's what it is. People are different. You know, you get like Tyson Fury at the beginning. No one cared about him. But obviously with the mental health and all the things and everything else, which is what he was going through, people thought, you know what, he's had a lot, he's suffered a lot, and he's come through it, he's gone on, he's done this, you've got to admire him. no, he was 24 stone or whatever he was, and then he hadn't boxed for, what was it, 18 months to 2 years, went over there and did what he did to Wilder, and then obviously got the rematch and beat him. So
emphatically,
you've boxing, yeah, you've got to be a good fighter, without a doubt. That's the foremost thing, but you've got to have something else as well. Do you know what I mean? You've got to build something. Brian used to give. That's why we had all nicknames. I never picked. My nickname was the Lurcher. Brian gave me
Lurcher,
because I used to have lurchers, hunting dogs. So Brian used to call me the Lurcher.
Oh right, okay. Nothing to do with the ladies then.
Nah, I didn't even like that name. Brian gave it me.
Okay.
Black Flash. Brian would have given that. Pat wouldn't have come up with that. No chance. Thomas McDonough, Stormboy. Brian. It was all Brian's doing, but he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
He was good at marketing his fighters.
Yeah, he knew what he was doing. And like Gomez, you know, they're saying he was this Irish travelling family, but Mike he wasn't from a travelling family. You know, they lived in an house sort of thing, but it was a story behind it all. So he was good at that sort of thing, and you need that little bit of a gimmick, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for giving us your time today.
No worries.
It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, an honour to meet you. You know, a former world champion. What can I say?
I like to be known as British champion because at the time the WBU.
It was a new belt, wasn't it?
Yeah, but when I boxed for it, it was a good belt. But now, it's not. It's been like downgraded sort of thing. I mean, Ricky Hatton, he made his name from the WBU, you know, for all the defences that he had until he went on and won better titles. But yeah, I'd sooner been on as former British champion.
Former British champion, the WBU. I think it was 1995, and was it part of the IBO?
I don't even know.
Yeah, I think it's linked. It's either linked to the IBO or the IBF, but don't quote me on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but thank you so much for your
No
time.
worries.
Is there anything that I've missed that you want to cover before we come to a close?
No, not that I can think of.
Thank you so much. Thank you, viewers, for watching the Black Flash Boxing channel. I'm Abs from October Red, and we'll see you soon.